Hello everyone, this is Jeremy from HardcoreGamer.com with a video review to supplement the text review of the Sega Genesis RetroGen system. It plays Genesis games anywhere you need to go or you want to go or you want to play some Genesis gaming. And if that sounds similar, that's basically the Nomad, only the 2010 version, theoretically. There are some caveats here that I'm going to get into. The first one you might have noticed, the buttons on the right side. Yes, they put 6. Thank God they did, because a lot of games are unplayable with just 3 buttons. But this 70-degree layout they've got here is awkward. My fingers are not that big. I'm a pretty skinny guy. I'm hitting 4 buttons with 1 finger here. That's pretty terrible. These buttons are entirely too small, too close together. However, I have a nice click to them. They do sound nice. They sound pretty good. They aren't cheap. What is cheap, however, is this D-pad. My God. This thing, you can see it's got a nice shine to it. That's all well and good. Unfortunately, it has no click. That is the sound of nothing. This thing barely pushes in. As a result, it's very hard to tell if you're playing with like greasy fingers exactly what you're doing. You can try to play Sonic on this thing with greasy fingers after some pizza, which I tried to do earlier. I wouldn't recommend that. This thing is terrible. Compare this D-pad here to the Nomad's. Now the Nomad here gives you a nice curve in the center. You can go any direction you want to. You can hold it in a variety of hold it in a variety of ways. Of course, you've got the hand grips on the back. Why the hand grips are 2 different shapes, I have no idea, but they work pretty well. And of course, you have the battery pack. I'm glad I found this because I could not find the AC adapter, which I always played this with, but I couldn't find it. I might have thrown it out in the past couple weeks when I was going through my cables and just chuck stuff randomly. I hope I didn't, but I probably did. Now, the Nomad, beyond the superior D-pad over here, also has far better buttons. These jelly bean shaped things have the horizontal orientation you would expect from a Genesis 6 button pad, and they're actually comfortable. Of course, you also have the start and mode buttons as well, whereas on the RetroGen you have start and menu. Why menu and not mode? The system has some pack-in games, but they're awful. The only one worth playing for any length of time is the Frogger knockoff, which is entitled something like Across the Road or something along those lines. Every other game on there is terrible. Don't play them. Just play your cartridges here. The big advantage the RetroGen has over the Nomad, aside from weight, is the fact that it charges with USB. You don't need batteries. You also have a PAL NTSC switch. This is relatively minor. I don't have any Mega Drive games. I have no desire to buy any, and I have no need for this switch. But if you do, there it is. That's one advantage. Also, the power button here. Now, this seems theoretically very easy to hit, right? It's got some ridges on it. See if I can get a shot of those for you. Yeah, there we go. Alright, the ridges. Well, they're nice. Unfortunately, they don't do much. The plastic here has no grip to it. It's just the same kind of plastic they use for the system. If they'd used any kind of rubber or made the ridges bigger, you could actually hit this thing easily. And of course, it would also probably help if I had a thumbnail. But I don't, but still. You don't need one with the Nomad. You just run your finger along this thing. Try to get a shot of both the screen and my finger. Easy peasy. No time at all, no effort. Very simple. Also, there's the direct current in. I thought that was the headphone jack. There we go. There's the AV input. The RetroGen has one as well. It also comes with the AV cable, which is nice, and a USB cable. Neither are big, but you know, if you run it, if you've lost a cable for a camera, this will work for that. Of course, the Nomad also had an extra controller port. It's a lot easier to see these things. There we go. There it is. There's the controller port. There is the volume next to the headphone jack, and over here we have the brightness control. The RetroGen lacks the extra controller port. You can only use this for one-player games, or if it has a multiplayer option, you can't make use of it. That's definitely a downside. One nice thing about it, one great thing, the screen is phenomenal on this unit. I'll show you the Nomad screen here. This is an HD camera, and you'll see that there you go, Sega thing, that comes in pretty clearly. Of course, the sound's perfect on this because it actually uses Genesis hardware. Alright, now that's the Sonic the Hedgehog everyone knows and loves, classic music. Here is the RetroGen's version of that. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, you know, it's going to look and sound the same, right? Visually, yes, of course, the screen on this system is much, much crisper. You'll see that very soon, and you might be able to tell. If you've played this before, if you played the 6-pack, you know what the music should sound like, but this is the best example here. There's the classic Sega. Sounds a little muffled. Not too bad, right? Just wait until the actual music begins. Alright, now as you can probably tell visually, the screen's a lot crisper. One thing I hope you were able to notice here, and I'm sorry if the YouTube video degradation has hurt it, but the Genesis Nomad here, the screen on this, was notorious for blurring. So one thing I'm hoping everyone was able to see is the blurring on this RetroGen is minimal. Actually, it's pretty much non-existent. Even in Sonic, it's there a little bit, but not that bad. Here, it's terrible. Now, Sonic, even with all that blurring, is still playable, but it's far more playable on the RetroGen. One thing I know you noticed, here, the same classic music, sound effects, everything exactly as it should be here. Not the same. The RetroGen has emulation on there, and as a result of it using emulation as opposed to the physical Genesis hardware, sounds off. And everything's kind of a little muddy. Nothing sounds as it should. Sound effects are off. Sounds a bit tinny. That's unfortunate. Now, in the case of Sonic, it's close enough. You know, you can tell what it should sound like if you've played it, or rather if you've played the original, but otherwise, you know, it just sounds a little strange, you know. That hurts it. One thing that I also hate about this system is that even with the audio being downgraded, you will hear it whether you want to or not because they place the volume control right next to the D-pad. So unless you hold the system like this, if you hold it like this, you will hit this thing. If you have small hands and you hold the system very close to your hand here, your palm, you're going to hit this volume control and you're going to be forced to listen to these downgraded songs. Genesis wasn't really known for its great music anyway, but you don't need to make it any worse. Especially for the few games that actually had good soundtracks, it doesn't do justice to them. However, if you want a portable Genesis and you can't find a Nomad for a decent price, this will work just fine as long as you can accept the sound being awful. You'll be able to live with it. I got this thing for about $25. I gotta say, even with the sound, even with the D-pad, even with the control for $25, it's not that bad a deal. Is the Nomad a better deal? Definitely. But this isn't terrible, and the only real downside to the use of the USB battery, or rather the internal battery charged by USB, is if this thing dies, or rather if the battery dies, you can't charge it, you're going to have to buy a new system. And that is certainly, you know, it's a downer, because it's not like you can just go to Best Buy and pick one of these things up. You have to order it off the web, and you know, I think we're all pretty used to that by now, but still, You know, it's not as easy as going to a 7-Eleven and picking up batteries for a system, although that will run you more than $25 if you need to get, a ton of these things. If you're playing this thing for hours on end without any AC adapter, you're going to run through batteries pretty quickly. Now, the RetroGen, I know I've knocked it a lot, but it is decent. It's not something I'd recommend as your primary Genesis. However, it is good. It's not great. There's also a third portable Genesis out there called the Gen Mobile. I have not seen that for a decent price. If I come across one, I will buy it and compare all three systems. Right now, I will say that as far as accuracy goes, Nomad wins out easily. The only things I couldn't play were the Sega CD and 32X. And honestly, given how few good games are released on each of those, that's not too bad a deal. That's kind of a case of addition by subtraction in that one. With this, the biggest problems are the buttons, the D-pad, the sound. The pack-in games are bad, but then those are kind of they're there. You're not paying for those. Really, I don't think anyone's going to buy the system for the pack-ins. The USB charge is phenomenal. I love that feature. It's infinitely preferable to having to buy batteries for this or any portable. And it definitely shows you what the concept could be like with the modern technology. Unfortunately, I think they tried to make it a little more symmetrical. They tried to make the sides even, and as a result, we got that vertical button orientation, which just doesn't work for me. I would much rather the system be a little wider than have the buttons like that. And also the D-pad should be better. I mean, this D-pad's terrible. I've used third-party pads for years. I've used pretty much any portable you can name. I have never used a D-pad this shoddy before. I mean, even the Game & Watch D-pads are better than this thing. But other than that, the screen is amazing. I could not believe how crisp this was. I remember nightmares with the Game Boy Advance. And that's, a 9-year-old system, but still first party from Nintendo, the kings of portable gaming. That screen was awful. This screen is nice and bright. I'm not sure if it's front lit or backlit, but it provides a decent amount of light no matter where you are. You don't need a brightness control like you did on the Nomad. And it's a phenomenal screen. That impressed me more than anything else. It's just a shame that that's the only part of it that's really first rate, because the D-pad's bad, the buttons are pretty bad, the layout for all the buttons on the secondary buttons, your power, your volume, they're just kind of just weird. It's like they didn't have a set idea in mind. They just wanted to place them wherever they could, and it doesn't really work out very well. However, I do like the placement of the the menu and start buttons. With the start button, if you need to hit start to pause, you can just go to it really easily, so I like that. I'm calling it mode again. Menu, I don't know why you didn't call it mode and just have it go to the main menu, but anyway, the menu button, same deal, very well placed. The cartridge port, you can see that there, everything fits in nice and flush. One of my concerns with this being an unlicensed product was maybe I had to finagle the cartridges in there, and that's not the case. And by the way, that Sega logo is only part of the game itself, not the system. The system has this wonderful quality control pass sticker on there that, I'm not really sure what that means beyond a pass quality control, but, I guess that means it works, and it does. Basically, if you're looking for a portable Genesis for cheap, this is the way to go. If you have a Nomad and you don't have a need for a long battery, you're probably fine with a Nomad. If you're worried about your Nomad getting stolen on the road or something, you can pick this up as a disposable system. I would definitely recommend it for anyone who likes the Genesis library and isn't happy with on-the-go PSP, the PSP collection. The Genesis collection for that. If you're not happy with that lineup, say you want to play some of the third-party games on here, pick this up. But for most people, you can skip this pretty safely unless you find it for a good price, because it just isn't well made enough to be worth the full price. At $20, you'll get $20 worth out of it, but not much more than that.